Scott Suttles is with us to discuss this college basketball scandal. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm well, good. How about you?
Doing well, and I wanted to get you on to give the high school basketball coach's perspective, because as a sportscaster, I see this up close and personal. And again, I know that probably a bigger problem is the shoe companies and apparel companies wanting to get their hooks into these young men. But you and I both know those apparel folks blanket those AAU tournaments more so as coaches do from the college ranks. And it seems to me what's happened in the last particularly 10 or 15 years is the high school coach who works for the high school where the student is a student and goes to school and has that athlete's best interest at heart has basically been cut out of this whole process. Am I correct in that?
I think that's, for the most part, a pretty safe assessment. Look, when Coach Saban wants to recruit a 4 or 5-star football prospect, he and his assistants talk to the kid's high school coach. But if I'm ever fortunate enough to coach a 4 or 5-star basketball player, and college recruiter is talking to his AAU coach, the high school basketball coach is, given a pat on the back, but that's about it now. And that's changed dramatically over the last decade. A top 50 player from every state in America will tell you now that, his AAU games and tournaments are much more important and significant than the high school games. Whether it's Peach Jam, whether it's, they have them in Vegas now. I mean, they're all over, and that's just a fact. And it didn't used to be that way, but that's how they get exposure now.
And that's so disappointing to me, because I love high school sports. I love the state tournament. I love what it means to young men who won't play college basketball and aren't getting recruited by Division I or II or III universities to be able to go out there and represent their school, their community, and play for a state championship. I think that's lost in some of this of what high school sports, the value it brings, and the fact that you as a high school coach are working with these young men, developing fundamentals, trying to teach them the game the right way. Yes, trying to teach them how to win, but at the same time, and I'm not going to say all of them. I know some of these guys that coach AAU basketball have a background in the game, but for the most part, I've been to these tournaments. They just run and gun. It's just up and down. The coach just stands over there. Many times he doesn't even know anything about basketball, and maybe it gets them and puts them on display for these college coaches, but I'm not sure they learn very much basketball in an AAU scenario. Do you, Scott?
No. Well, first of all, I wouldn't say AAU coaches are bad for high school sports. I think many are good and bring positive aspects to the programs they coach. However, there are some negative things as well, especially whether it's directly or indirectly leading players to transfer or go to a different school than they should. As the AAU circuit has picked up the last 10, 15 years, so too has the amount of players going to different high schools than their hometown. And it runs pretty rampant. And you have old hats like me who will complain that I have a marginal player even now that will go and score 10, 12 points a game in some of the lower echelon leagues of AAU, and then they'll come back and they can't, play dead in a cowboy movie, when they're playing for me because they've forgotten how to defend and because they don't have to up there. It is an exposure, and it's shoot first, think later. So sometimes we get frustrated with that aspect.
The corruption aspect. And again, I know you're a high school basketball coach. Your focus is on your team and in your school. But again, you're aware of what goes on. And I've said this several times today. It's disappointing to me that it takes a federal agency to bring this to light when, going back for as long as I've been in the TV business, it's just been a known situation that AAU basketball and these shoe companies and apparel companies breed these type of activities. That it's been kind of that shh, we know what goes on, but shh. And yet the NCAA has never done anything about it. And now, of course, their hand has been forced. But how sad is that this has come out, and now everybody from sportscasters to coaches to players, well, this is just, we've known this has been going on for years. Well, then that's a shame.
There's a lot of egg on a lot of people's faces, I'm afraid, with NCAA yesterday, because most of them found out about it about the same time you and I did. And, this is an FBI situation. And so, I don't know. I watched Seth Greenberg and Jay Williams yesterday on the sports panel, and they're just, money is, I don't know, maybe it's just the love of money, but it's the root of all evil. And if there's a way to hustle and make money, that's been going on since the dawn of time. And but it is sad. It's sad that it might cost some people some eligibility. That's for sure.
One thing that I've had, and I won't name him, but a prominent high school coach, not you, obviously, but another one tell me that has a long, great reputation in this state, was that where it's affected him is he's had a number of players that have been recruited. He says, they go through the AAU circuit and they get to, time for high school basketball, and they're so focused on college and so focused on, the NBA and being told they're going to get money and all these things, that it really affects them playing for me. And they don't see high school basketball as any type of having any value to them, having any benefit to them, and I don't get their best effort at times. Is that something that you've seen or are concerned about?
Sure, that's valid. It's a legitimate concern. Now, again, you're talking about upper echelon prospects.
Right.
You're talking
in this
about
case, I am. Yeah.
Third, right. But just going literally in the last 10 years, I can remember whether it was a couple of kids that I had that played at marginal, D1 schools, Tennessee Tech and Florida A&M, but eventually were so good at whatever they specialized. One was a shooter, and he ended up playing overseas for a little while, and then one that, of course, Perrin Buford played for me, that played with the Boston Celtics
right.
this last off season during the summer league, and now is playing in Brisbane in Australia. Those type guys didn't have college coaches coming to watch them during season. And 10 years ago, at Thanksgiving tournaments, at Christmas tournaments. Now it's junior college coaches come and watch us when they get a chance. We just don't see, and this goes for everybody. This is guys that are coaching, 6'9", 240 stars. They just watch them during these AAU tournaments because that's where they get the exposure now. And so it's sure when they see Krzyzewski and Avil Self and Roy Williams all at the top row while they're playing during the summer, no matter where it is, on the East Coast in Orlando, and like I said, there's a tournament now in Vegas almost every other weekend in March, and especially in July, and that's where it's at. So where are you going to play hard at when you know that you got a chance to go play, in Kansas or some, Duke, North Carolina, Alabama, or are you going to play it just because it's a rival game? And yeah, you do. They know where their bread's buttered.
Scott Suttles, Hillcrest High School basketball coach, our guest here on the Bud Light Hotline, talking about this basketball scandal that has just gripped the sports world. And locally, it's had an effect. I've been here for close to 20 years. You grew up here. It's affected the University of Alabama, and someone that you and I know well, Kobe Baker, like you, a local person. He went to Central High School, worked at Alabama for Mark Gottfried, went and worked for the NCAA. I've known him a long time. You've known him a long time. This is sad. He's got a young family, and he got caught up in this, and now, he's had to resign from the University of Alabama. So, these are real people we're talking about that get caught up in this thing, and when it hits close to home like this, it's just really sad.
Yeah, it's tough, and you just have to talk to your kids nowadays about so many other different things than you used to, and but that's honesty is the best policy.
That's right. Yeah, you do wrong, and you know that sometimes there are going to be, repercussions for that. And I guess too, that's when you look at these coaches that have jeopardized their careers for a little bit of side money. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of respect and lack of concern that they have for the NCAA's ability to do anything about this. That's another thing it tells me, Scott, and I know you're at the high school level, but you have to look, if I'm a college basketball coach and I'm brokering these deals, nobody did this with the idea they would get caught, Coach. So that tells you right there they don't feel the NCAA has any teeth. Now, the feds, whole different story, but that's what it's taken to bring this thing to light. I go back to that. It's just really disappointing that this has gone on for this long with nothing done about it by the supposed by the governing body of collegiate athletics, the NCAA.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to yesterday, what you heard, I think the number is $140 million. That's what type of check Louisville receives from Adidas. And,
wow.
You're not talking about chump change here. Now, obviously, that's Petrino's football program. It's track, it's tiddlywinks, it's everything. But they are the ones who supply uniforms, and it's just tough.
Big business.
Is how, that's exactly right. They're told that this is how it's done at the NBA level. This is how Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, this is how they get their signature shoes. And so, yeah, you can't take a risk if you're one of those shoe companies, I suppose, that somebody goes through the crack. And, I mean, even Paul George now with Oklahoma City, he has his own line of shoes that kids pay exorbitant amounts of money for. And so you can't miss that diamond in the rough if you're one of these shoe companies. So, you throw a whole lot of money at these universities, and they're not going to not cash those checks.
All right, before we wrap it up with you, I want to get back to the high school side, and I'm going to ask you about your team coming up for this season in a moment. But as a high school basketball coach, you've been at it long enough now. You've been basically through a generation of students that you've coached and taught. Do you still find that kids at your level are the same as they were when you started or when you were growing up and playing, or as all the technology and all the things that are out there and all the things that we're talking about, has it changed them, or at the core is the coaching and teaching that you do similar to what it was when you started?
No, I think kids for the most part are the same as far as wanting someone to push them to aspire to be better than they actually thought that they could be. That's still the same. Some of the things that are different, though, are, I can remember bus trips. Again, we're not talking about 20 years ago. I'm old, but I'm not that old. But we're talking just in the last 10 years, how you would literally have to get up on the bus on long road trips and say, hey, don't get personal back there, talking about people's mothers and stuff like that, even though that was part of the camaraderie and that was part of being a team. They were doing something together. They were actually communicating with their mouth. Now you're literally watching them put these headphones on and they text each other, they direct message each other, whoever it is with their girlfriend, but they don't communicate, they don't talk. And of course, half the battle with us is with our man-to-man defensive principles is communication. And so it's very difficult to tell a kid, hey, we've got to talk. We've got to really communicate on defense. And they just don't do it as much as they used to. The strongest muscles in their body sometimes, I think, are the tendons and ligaments in their thumbs, the way that they text each other. So that's one thing that's changed. You have to get them to talk. And but for the most part, no, they want to aspire to do great things, and sometimes you have to just push them to that level.
All right, finally, before I let you go, talk about your team coming up for this season. I know it's your goal to get to Birmingham every year in Class 6A. What kind of basketball team you think you're going to have?
Well, this is going to be a big slice of humble pie, to be blunt with you, Gary.
Okay.
I have one senior coming back, Chad Bell, who's a wide receiver on the football team. I have literally one senior in the program. So this is going to be a very interesting season. I think we will get better as the season goes on, from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and hopefully we'll peak in January, February. But everybody around here, I mean, there's no secret. everybody's playing for second place as good as Bryant is. Bryant won the state championship and returns literally everybody.
Yeah, they're stout.
So we all realize it's Bryant's world. We're all just living in it. So Sean Peck's done a great job over there, and we just gotta suck it up and realize that there is some young talent that's come up, especially in this freshman class. So if you're going to get Hillcrest, you better get them this year. But we're going to struggle mightily this year, I'm afraid.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate your insight from the high school perspective on some of this. It's unfortunate, but I think in the long run, I really do think some good can come out of it for everybody involved. Thank you so much.
That's right. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.